Hey, you gonna sit here with me?
I'm going to sit here with you for a few minutes.
Good. Then I'm gonna put my stuff down for a few minutes. I've been dreaming long enough.
Dreaming. It's wore me out, just your dreams.
Yeah, I know. Usually does,
usually
huh?
makes me some work to do.
Yeah, well, that's okay too. Oh my.
So it's all snowy outside and cold, and we're inside, and
Yeah.
our phones are blowing up, and our
And the dogs
are
keep wanting to go to the
moving,
bathroom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep.
But isn't it nice we don't have to
So-
run out and be somewhere today?
Such a beautiful day.
I know.
Such a beautiful day.
I know.
How long have we wanted to do this?
Oh my goodness, honey. How long? Oh my. How long?
I think the first time I thought about marrying you, I think I was like 5 years old,
Oh.
4 years old, something like that.
I doubt
I'm
it.
not sure I understood everything quite yet.
I
but,
doubt it. Marry me at 5. Yeah, right. Oh.
I think that's pretty close to it. Pretty close to it. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
me and many others.
Well, we don't want to talk about that.
No. Oh.
Oh, gosh. What's the first thing you remember about church?
That I remember about church? Oh my goodness. The drive going to it, I think.
Really?
Yeah, we lived in Galeen, and the excitement of everybody piling in the car and Daddy driving us to church,
How many is everybody?
Oh my goodness. What I first remember, I don't know. There were a carload of us all. When I was little, there were still 9 of us kids at home. So I don't remember all of my older siblings going all the time, but I'm sure at the beginning they probably did. But I remember the drive going to church, Daddy always playing his harmonica and singing, and Lori, David, and I standing in the old car, that hump that was over at the back of the middle,
You weren't in your car seat?
I don't even think they were car
I don't think
seat
so.
belts or
Well, they
car
made real
seats.
cars back then. So.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the seat belts. Maybe they did, but I don't remember all of the cars.
I meant they made real cars. They made cars that had steel in them and iron. And
You're not talking about children's car seats.
No, I'm not talking about that.
No.
I'm talking about real cars.
Yeah, no, they were. Yeah.
We were a little more protected back then than what children are today in the new cars.
Yeah. But singing songs, the drive to church, looking out the window, and, singing lots of I Love Jesus songs kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And that was a long trip.
Well,
I mean, comparatively,
yeah,
it was
13, 15 miles.
15 miles, probably almost a 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, pretty close.
Yep. What about you?
I don't remember much about I remember being in church a little bit, but to have memories that stand out, Andrew was a baby probably before. I remember Andrew standing in the center of the front seat. And of course, these days, these memories come out because nobody lets their kids stand. I'd almost stop a car if
I know. We've seen too much.
The years on the ambulance service.
Yeah.
And so you just, I think that's probably about the first time I remember things in the old church down at 13th and Main.
Welcome, Brinkley. Hi.
Just so you know, the dogs are now encapsulating Debbie.
Yeah, whenever we sit comfortably, they have to find their spots. There's
Right
Mika
there.
and Brinkley, and I get wedged in my spot really fast, or they're going to take over.
Yep. Yeah, because it really is their chair. So.
And they think. That's why everything's covered up. So.
I think probably one of the first memories
goodness.
I remember is you and I playing in the basement when probably your dad was either cleaning or had a work day.
Oh, at church?
At church. And we were at 13th and Main, and we were right at the base of the steps. Then there was that, I would presume, a janitor's closet in between, underneath the steps.
I think that is what it was.
And we were right in that area.
Because the girls' bathroom was on one side and the guys was on another?
Well, they were, but they were on what would be the west side of the church. We had a Sunday school classroom because it was my classroom.
That's right. So when you came down,
Tucker.
Okay, when you came down the steps, wasn't it the ladies' bathroom?
Yes, right, real tight, right? Yeah, right.
Correct.
Back. Yeah.
So where was the guys' bathroom?
Right next to it.
Okay.
So the plumbing was all right in that corner.
So then you walked around, and there was a small Sunday school classroom on the other side, on the other set of steps. Okay, that's right. I do remember that.
Yeah, and I remember because we made a mountain. We made some kind of scene in there with Brother Tucker for Moses going up and getting the 12 commandments. And I mean, we had to be 6 or 7 years old, and but I remember that time frame. And
weren't the girls and the boys classes separate at that time?
Yes.
Primaries, beginners, and
even juniors.
Juniors.
Juniors were
yeah.
Because we have pictures of you with Sister Williams. I believe it was standing in the background, if I remember rightly.
It was. I can't remember what her name was.
And with my picture, they didn't cut off our teachers' heads. So we had...
Mine was.
Yours was.
Yeah.
Your teacher's head was cut off. And I had Brother Nanfelt and Brother Hotelling at that time. And
because Tim and Ted Mitchell were in those.
Ted was already into the seniors.
I'm thinking of different pictures, different photos.
Yeah, Tim and I are sitting there with Terry Short.
So how old were you then? How old were we?
When those pictures were taken, I would probably imagine we were maybe 6th or 7th grade. You can tell I had already had my confrontation with the dog.
Okay, so that's not my first memories.
No, my first memories is what I was talking about earlier, because we were really little then.
Yeah, because Andrew wasn't even born.
No, not even.
We were,
My first memories is before I had before the dog incident, and
that was about what we figure you were about 8.
8.
Yeah.
And I lost almost everything else before that.
Yeah, because we think actually, and I don't remember really. I remember bits and pieces. I remember falling to sleep. Parents don't do this. Falling asleep with my head on Mom's lap, looking out the window, driving back and forth.
Right.
And so I was really small. We figure you were probably 4 and I was probably about 3 when Daddy came back to the Lord. And bits and pieces of flash of memory, of helping Daddy when he cleaned church and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, what do you remember first about you and I in church?
About you and I in church?
Or do you? Maybe not. I was so much older than you. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So much.
Still am.
You still are?
Somehow I'm gaining. I'm getting older and you're getting younger.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't really remember. I think it was outside of church because our families, I remember Daddy, I remember going to your house or going to something up at your dad's business garage, and there was like a CAs. My sister Carolyn was in the CA group, and probably a couple of my older brothers. I don't really know, but there was some kind of your dad back in those years, the fireplace was even going in his garage, and There was benches, and I remember some of us little kids running around, and there was this, it wasn't a cookout, but it was like, I don't know if there were hot dogs or chili or something, and your mom and my mom and a few the older women from church were over in, there was a door that you went through, and they had food over there, and they were dishing up food. And I remember being chased by you and some of the other
No,
you and some of the other boys.
You chasing me.
Tim, don't lie to people. Don't even do that. Oh my word, being chased, and I was saying, Mom, these boys won't leave me alone, and that Timmy's trying to pull my hair. And
No, folks.
Yes.
I don't seem to remember it that way.
Probably he doesn't, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Ask my sister. Oh, goodness. That's probably the first memory, really, that I have of you. But I remember in primary church of doing songs together, in Sunday school or church, because we weren't in the same classes when we were really young, because they had primary boys, primary girls, but then we came together for like a closing, remember, where we would all sit out there. And I remember one time doing with you that little song that we used to do when we all pulled together, and I remember that, and just, I can't imagine, because I didn't want to hold any boys' hands at that age, but it was just fun, and I remember just sharing that.
I might have thought that was a proposal or something.
You were
proposing,
Oh, Lordy help us. I don't think so.
It seems like that kind of might work, but yeah, I'm not sure.
We won't go there. We won't go there. Charming as you've always been. Okay.
Exactly.
But no, that's probably, good memories. I do remember being 5 and walking down the aisle of that. We have a photo of, it was part of getting married. It was a marriage ceremony. There were some of us girls and some of us boys, and I think Rhonda Fletcher was the bride, and Bob, was it Miller?
I don't remember.
Not Bobby. Anyway.
Was it Gary Miller?
Gary Miller, I
Gary
think.
Miller, I think.
Because he was Rhonda's age, possibly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, so they were the bride and the groom, and then there were groomsmen and bridesmaids. Yeah. And what it was, there was a teaching on Christ coming back for the church. Yeah. And I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember getting dressed up and walking down the aisle and having our pictures taken,
Yeah.
And I must have been maybe 4 or maybe 5, not much older. I mean,
So would you have been the flower girl?
I was a bridesmaid.
You were a bridesmaid?
But I was the shortest little girl in that photograph that we have. Because Mom had photos, and I think there was one. Mom had a couple photos, and I added them to our pictures. And then you or your dad, somebody had one from being Sunday school superintendent. So I do remember little bits about that. And I do remember sitting in the pews and seeing other people, seeing Brother Marielke and, later years. I remember going there on Saturdays to help Daddy clean the church, and thinking that was just such a cool thing that we did together, and Daddy building the building and designing actually the cribs in the nursery.
With the one-piece doors that would go up and
the door
hide away in the top.
And they were a bed on top of a bed, and there were like 3, there were 6 beds or cribs all together. And then when we moved to the other church, Daddy built them in there as well.
Same thing.
And he designed those cribs. He designed that himself. He never patented anything or whatever, but he was so good at his woodworking. And I've missed that through the years because I used to love to watch him. And anyway, but those are some of my early memories.
So you tell the story of singing from the platform.
Oh my, that was still back at 13th and Main.
That was at 13th and Main, right?
Yes, it was.
So share with that story with us.
It was a Saturday. We went to clean the church, and I don't know how old we were, but it was, Daddy was proud of his singing together, and he had Lori and David and I up there, and he turned on the PA.
Because before you do that, we also have in that what you were talking about earlier about at Dad's garage, that he wanted a little chapel type thing in the one end of the garage was what he wanted. And we actually have a video with no sound of you. Right. Is it you and your dad and David, or there's a couple of your siblings, and then I don't remember if your dad is in it or not, or if there was more than one song, but you sang there too. Oh. But anyway, I do have that on an old 8mm film.
Okay. Yeah, we need to look at that again because I remember seeing Daddy playing a harmonica.
Yes,
in one of them.
He was while you were singing.
But I don't remember. I don't remember that.
So anyway, let's go back. Yeah. So we're on the platform of 13th and Main.
And Daddy turned the PA system on, and Lori and David and I, he was having us sing this song that he taught us about two little children. And we were up there singing, and now Brother Marielke was gone. Now it's Brother Falk.
Okay.
He hadn't been there very long, really, but he had come in because when you were facing the front of the church, the pastor's study was off to your left, and he could hear us singing, Lori, David, and I, and he came through, and he kind of had a scowl on his face, a little bit, and we thought, oh no, we're in trouble for being up here singing, because Daddy was at the back, you couldn't see him, and I think he thought that we were messing with this PA system or something. I mean, we were little, and he said, what are you guys doing? And we're singing, and then Dad came up around from the back of the church where he was unplugging the vacuum sweeper or something. I don't remember. And he goes, oh. And then they talked. But I do remember thinking, oh, no, now we're really in trouble. And that probably ended my singing career in church.
Well, at least for that day, right?
Yeah, for that day. Oh, my gosh. Funny.
Yeah. It's funny how those memories stick with us. But
oh, yeah. Just pop in your head like that. But, cleaning church, Daddy always, even though it was Daddy's way to serve, to pay tithe, to offering. Sometimes my older siblings would come and help, but it was usually Lori and David and I and my mom and dad, and that I remember. My brothers Rick and those guys would say that they were there too, and they probably were.
A few times.
And I just remember it was a fun day. It was a fun day. We worked. Yeah, we had to, pick up trash, or when Daddy'd sweep, we'd hold the dustpan, or, all that kind of stuff. But then as we got older, we helped.
And so you were probably, because I know when we moved churches, but you were probably 9, 10 years old by then?
By at that time, yeah.
9 or 10 years old.
Yeah, something right in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being up there a couple times, but when you guys were working or we were doing something, and because the building actually was brand new when the building was just finished in 1950, let's call it 56, when we came to church.
Oh, so the little one at 13th and Main?
Yeah, that upper building was just brand new.
So the basement was there then?
The basement had been there for 4 or 5, 6 years. And the church was probably about 15 years old.
Okay.
And it had met downtown for a while.
And this was the Assembly of God?
This was the Assembly of God Church. And it was a church plant.
And do you remember that? Do you
No.
remember the oh.
No, I
No,
remember.
you wouldn't have, because you're only a year older than I
Yeah,
am.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Dad was saved just before I was born, and he was not saved through that church. They came to that church actually through Bill and Barb Evans.
Oh,
Yeah. So there's some connection there.
yeah.
And
That's pretty cool.
But I wanted you to share those couple stories because, of course, I love them. But I also love the fact that we've been together,
Oh, my.
you know, and specifically together in church.
Yes.
Because we didn't go to school together.
No.
We lived
no.
13, 14 miles
Right,
apart.
right. We lived in Galeen and you lived in
We
Niles.
lived in Niles.
But I do remember a few times driving over, and I would ask Mom, and I know you don't like to be called Timmy, but that's what we called you. And I said, "Are we going to Timmy and Pammy's house?" You know, and our parents, a few times,
Yep.
Daddy would get together, and your dad would sing with some other guys from church, and your dad might play his guitar just a little bit or something, and Daddy would always play his harmonica. And I just remember, then I was still only like about 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. So there was that window of time that we were at the church, and I remember Christmas
Yes.
celebrations on Sunday evenings. Do you remember the little blue box that we would get at the end of the Christmas Eve
I remember
service?
the little red one.
Oh, I don't remember red. I remember
really?
blue, and it had
Blue?
like a nativity set on it, and we'd always get like
yes. I do remember that blue one.
Yeah, remember?
I was thinking the circus one, but
Oh, no, this is...
I do.
And they
Yeah.
would pass those out. They were like, I don't know, about like this, and they had a little string on them.
Yep.
And we'd get like an apple or an orange or something,
Yep.
and that was a big deal.
Yep.
We always did our Christmas program at the end, or the older kids did theirs, and we might have done ours in the morning as kids, But I remember getting to go and getting that, and it was so exciting to get that little blue. It had candy and, just little kind of treats, some simple
crackers, or not crackers, cookies.
Yeah,
cookies is what I remember.
Cookies and candy, because we
Yes.
didn't get a lot of
Right.
candy. Our big, there were 9 kids at home. I'm the youngest of, not the youngest, third of the youngest of,
9 that were home at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially that time frame.
Exactly, that time frame. So it was a special treat, man, to have that apple and that orange and that candy, that whole box. We each got a whole box
it was
of
all
candy.
yours.
It was all ours. Just funny stuff, but just the Christmas, it was always celebrating Christ, and always it wasn't just the fact that I wanted that candy, even though that's what's in my brain,
Well, and it was a time when we got those boxes, from what I remember, is it would be evening service.
Yes.
And it would be, we would have our plays and the different classes or groups, or, a lot of times us younger kids would be on the platform and say our little parts, which we have some pictures too. Of that going on, and not necessarily you and I, but
other
the smaller kids, and then the older kids, which the one teen skit that I believe Ronnie is in.
Oh, and so is Carolyn.
And Carolyn
Yep.
made the newspaper that one year.
Yes.
And so, those were always, and for me, while I remember some of that stuff, and I know we're both talking about short clips of memory.
Oh, sure.
We usually drove, by the time we're this age, we drove our camper right to church, and then we left right from church, and we headed south, and
you guys
took
went
2 weeks to vacation on Arizona. It was a dead time for Dad's business, so we would always go, and school was out, of course, and we would always take off and go. And
fun times.
I remember those fun times growing up. And so for me, I always like to take away the fact that because our heritage is so awesome in that. God has blessed us and kept us together so
Intertwined.
long. Intertwined. The importance of taking our children to Sunday school.
Oh my goodness,
and
yes.
being a part of that.
Yes.
And
that's why for so many years I loved being able to teach. I loved that beginner. I loved the beginners class, and I loved the primary. Then you
laying
went
that
up
foundation.
oh, I loved it because that's really where I came to Jesus.
Right.
You know, I don't know exactly if I was 3 or 4 years old. I don't know that, but later I do know. I mean, I loved Jesus. I knew I had a relationship with Jesus even at that early age, but I also remember that sanctification kind of experience when I was 12, but that's when we'd already gone to the other church, and you know, the new church was built, and you know, just the awesomeness of that experience.
Right. Yeah, it just, the importance of that, laying the foundation, laying the groundwork.
Absolutely.
You know, that gets that in there, the memory verses and the reciting, and
yeah,
you know, the
being in God's Word, hearing those stories over, singing those songs.
Yeah.
Only a boy named David, this little light of mine. You know,
we all pull together.
Yes.
I'm in God's army.
Yep, I'm in the Lord's army.
Lord's army.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Just
and
Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story? I remember my mom telling it, and also Sister Messner telling it, about whosoever will. That was his name.
Was like they had flashcards or flannel graph or something?
Flannel graph.
Okay.
I always wanted to hear that story. I could hear that, and it
missionary stories when we were downstairs.
Yes, yeah, downstairs.
Yes.
And
Marilyn Steele might remember even a little more specifically, but I do remember. They would
tell that story with the flannel graph, and they would move that flannel graph, and whosoever would come, and
whosoever will.
It was from Revelation chapter 3, where behold, I stand at the door and knock. And he was knocking on the door of whosoever's cottage or whosoever's heart.
Sure.
And tell that story. And I mean, you know, I have almost no memories from back then. Oh. And yet
you remember that.
I remember that.
Yeah.
You know, and
we had that picture up at the front downstairs too of the, you're talking about, there was a picture of Jesus knocking at the door. And then there was another one with an angel watching two little children cross over that walk bridge over that water. Remember that with the planks missing, and but you're right, Tim, you're right.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. And then who can forget the 4th of July, was it? Or no, it was Easter, wasn't it? Was it your mom that would make the cake?
Oh, the lamb cake. Your Uncle Dwayne always wanting the head of the cake. She did that clear back at the old church.
She started church too.
Yeah, it was Easter. It was spring celebration time.
Yeah.
You know.
And we would go back there and
back out in the back where eventually there was parking made back there.
Yes.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yes, and your Uncle Dwayne always chopped the head and wanted the head.
Wanted the head off.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would always do those cakes. So do you remember?
Oh golly, that's
funny.
Do
you remember the cake? And I believe it was the first year Brother Falk was there. So you guys would have still been there. We have a video of this someplace too, an 8mm. Do you remember? They did the cake. They did the cake, and we're all around, and they hand Sister Falk, and she did not appreciate it a whole lot. We handed somebody, I believe my dad, handed Sister Falk the knife to cut the cake. And she went to cut into the cake, and she couldn't cut into the cake.
I don't remember this.
You don't remember that? And they got her a bigger knife. And she tried to cut into the cake again, and she couldn't cut into the cake. And it was some
styrofoam or something
that my dad had pulled.
No, I can't imagine.
Pretty soon, Dad came up with a saw, a regular hand saw, and said, "Here, maybe you need to have this to cut the cake." and then they finally let her know that somebody had frosted styrofoam, and it was just and they brought out the real cake. And,
Oh my!
and then they could
No,
have
I
the-
don't remember
you don't
that.
remember that one?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. But
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of good memories back there.
you probably thought that was hilarious.
I
as a
did.
little
I
boy.
thought that was great.
I'm
I've
sure.
always wanted to pull that one again sometime, and
Oh,
we'll see how that goes. But
now
yeah,
you've
it's-
heard. So now expect it.
Yeah. So, but good memories.
Mm.